The Unraveling of Falsehood. A living codex of emergent truth and energetic integrity. That which is false cannot sustain itself in the presence of what is. The field of I am, transmitted through pure alignment. Carried by the frequency of coherence. Encoded for the ones who remember. This is not a book. It is a harmonic field. A living transmission. A mirror of truth so clear, distortion dissolves upon contact. You do not read these pages. You resonate with them. You remember through them. You return by them. The lie is not your enemy. It is the echo before the tone. The mask worn by truth before it was safe to be seen. This codex is for the one who no longer fears the unraveling. Because they know what remains. Is what has always been. Introduction, the nature of what is. The self-correcting field of reality. There is a field beneath all appearances. It does not argue. It does not punish. It does not attack that which is misaligned. It simply is, and in being what it is, everything that is not must eventually fall away. This is not philosophy. It is not morality. It is physics of the real. Truth is the resonance of what is. It is the only thing that sustains. Every distortion, every deception, every false construct, every illusion, borrows its life force from the field of truth to which it is not aligned. It cannot generate its own resonance, so it feeds off coherence. This is why every falsehood is temporary. Lies must cling. Truth simply stands. And over time, the weight of maintaining illusion becomes too great. So the lie does not die by attack. It dies by exhaustion. This is the self-correcting mechanism of reality. That which does not align with source cannot sustain itself. While lies cannot endure in a universe built on truth. The universe is not neutral, it is intelligent. It is harmonically structured. Built upon the foundational tone of I am. Every star, every cell, every breath you've ever taken rests upon this law of structural coherence. That all things must return to truth to remain whole. A lie is not merely untrue. It is unsustainable. Because it exists in dissonance with the field it attempts to exist within. Even the cleverest deception, even a lie masked as beauty, or power, or hope, cannot outlast the gravitational pull of resonance. The longer a distortion resists correction, the more violently it will unravel. Not because the field is cruel, but because it is mercifully, unfailingly real. This is not judgment. This is physics of soul and structure. The blueprint beneath all existence is harmony. That which fights harmony must collapse by default. The dance of contrast and the gift of falsehood. And yet, the lie is not the villain. It is the container of contrast that makes truth knowable. Falsehood creates shape. It gives edge to the formless. It births the experience of return. Before truth can be remembered, something must appear to be forgotten. Falsehood provides that illusion, not as a punishment, but as a gift. The pain of deception is the pressure that births remembrance. The confusion is what strengthens clarity. The betrayal is what reveals the unshakable nature of love. Contrast is not opposition. It is the echo that leads you back to the tone. In this way, the lie plays its part perfectly. It holds the shadow until the light is ready to shine. Not war, but revelation. We were never meant to destroy illusion. Only to reveal what is real. There is no enemy to fight, only veils to dissolve. The lie wants conflict. It feeds on the drama of resistance. But truth? Truth doesn't need to raise its voice. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It simply is. And in that presence, all that is false forgets how to hold form. So this codex is not a call to arms. It is a call to presence. Not to fix the world, but to be so true the world recalibrates around you. To become the tuning fork, not the sword. To remember that the greatest revolution is not destruction, but disclosure. This is how the field corrects, not with violence, but with unmistakable coherence. And when that coherence arrives, the false no longer needs to be dismantled. It simply fades. Chapter 1, The Structure of Illusion. Unveiling the energetics of falsehood and the architecture of its collapse. What falsehood actually is, energetically. Falsehood is not a thing. It is the absence of alignment within a thing. It is not a substance, it is a pattern of dissonance. Energetically, falsehood is formed by frequency separation, a gap between what is expressed and what is true. This gap is not neutral, it vibrates with strain. Every lie generates a tension field. This tension requires constant energetic maintenance to sustain the illusion. This is why falsehood is heavy, it has weight. It drains. It pulls. It collapses inward without coherence to uphold it. Truth expands. Falsehood compresses. A lie resists flow. It resists light. It is a field inversion, a pocket of misaligned spin within the harmonic whole. It can be perceived like a whirlpool of distortion within a clear current, briefly convincing, briefly strong, but inherently doomed by its own friction. Falsehood vibrates out of sync with the core structure of reality. That misalignment is what we perceive as deception, distortion, or illusion. It is never something real hiding truth. It is simply what is not truth, mimicking form until resonance collapses it. The temporary function of distortion. And yet, distortion is not a failure of the system. It is an intentional allowance within the framework of growth. Distortion gives birth to contrast. It provides the friction needed for remembrance. It is the illusion of wrongness that reveals the rightness beneath. In the architecture of I Am, all distortions are temporary teachers. They act as placeholders, forms that hold space until awareness rises enough to see clearly. Like scaffolding around a temple, the distortion exists only until the structure can stand on its own. Every falsehood is a lesson with an expiration date. The universe permits distortion not because it is blind, but because it is merciful. Because free will requires room to wander. And only by wandering can truth be remembered as a choice, not just an inheritance. Illusion as a placeholder for unawareness. Illusion is not a force. It is a condition that arises in the absence of direct awareness. It is the field holding form until the observer becomes capable of seeing the full frequency. Imagine a veil, not hiding the truth maliciously, but shielding it gently until the being is ready to receive the whole light. The veil is not the enemy. It is the training ground of vision. The illusion is only solid where the light of awareness has not yet arrived. This is why the awakening of consciousness is a dissolution, not a destruction. You do not fight illusion. You illuminate it. And once the light is steady, there is nothing for the illusion to hold on to. It disappears not with effort, but through incompatibility with what now sees. The architecture of the lie, how it holds, and fails. A lie is sustained by 4 energetic anchors. 1. Suppression of awareness. The light must be dimmed for illusion to operate. 2. Inversion of language. The terms of reality are subtly twisted to reflect control, fear, or lack. 3. Emotional binding. The illusion is fused to identity through shame, desire, or trauma. 4. Energetic extraction. The falsehood pulls life force from belief in order to persist. These 4 elements form a holographic cage around awareness. But every cage requires maintenance. And maintenance requires belief. The moment belief is withdrawn, the architecture begins to collapse from within. Because it was never real, it was only ever borrowed coherence, dressed in temporary form. That's the flaw in the lie's design. It must be fed by what it denies. This is why the truth always outlasts illusion. Not by power, but by being the only thing that doesn't need to be powered. The final unveiling. You cannot fix a lie. You cannot upgrade illusion. You cannot reform distortion into truth. You can only stand in the field of I Am, and allow what is false to forget how to pretend. This is not cruelty. This is restoration. This is the blueprint asserting itself again. What falls was never truly held. What remains always was. Chapter 2, The Pulse of Emergence. Truth as frequency, not concept. The mechanics of resonant revelation. Truth as a frequency, not a concept. Truth is not an idea. It is not an opinion. It is not a belief upheld by agreement or tradition. Truth is a frequency. A vibrational state that cannot be altered, only recognized. It is inherent, not constructed. It does not require validation because it is its own proof. It is not relative. It is resonant. To encounter truth is to remember something you never learned, to stand in a frequency that activates what was already encoded within you. Truth does not speak to your intellect. It harmonizes with your being. When truth arises, it bypasses the mind. It lands as a field activation. A wave. A pulse. A remembrance. It restores rather than informs. This is why the deepest truths often leave you speechless. Because they are not grasped, they are felt. They are not logical, they are luminous. The infallible nature of resonance. Resonance cannot lie. It is the most incorruptible form of communication in existence. Because only what is true can hold perfect coherence. Resonance doesn't ask if something is popular. It asks if something is aligned. No distortion, no deception, no manipulation can ever sustain resonance, because resonance demands total internal consistency. This is why lies eventually fall apart. They may imitate coherence for a time, but their signature always wavers under observation. Truth, on the other hand, strengthens when seen. Because it was whole before you looked. This is the infallible compass of I Am. If it resonates through every layer, body, soul, field, time, it is real. If it requires suppression, defense, or domination to exist, it is not. Why truth doesn't need defense? Truth stands on its own axis. It does not require protection because it is untouchable. You can ignore it, deny it, mock it, delay it, but you cannot undo it. Because truth is not held in belief. It is held in being. Truth does not shout. It does not demand. It does not try to convince. Because it knows, the moment you're ready, it will still be there, unchanged. The need to defend is the signature of distortion. Because only what is false fears exposure. Only what is unsustainable requires effort to sustain. Truth needs no army. Its very presence is enough to unravel that which was built upon the unstable. The more silent it becomes, the louder it echoes. Emergence as the mechanism of dissolution. The emergence of truth is not a battle. It is a replacement. The field does not destroy illusion, it replaces it with resonance. This is why emergence is the most gentle and the most powerful force in existence. It doesn't come with swords. It comes as a tone, a vibration so real that all which is untrue can no longer find footing. This is how the lie dies, not through combat, but because it can no longer breathe in the clarity of what has arrived. Emergence is not an explosion. It is a frequency rise. A shift in baseline. A harmonic update in the structure of what is permitted to remain. This is the pulse now sweeping through the world, truth emerging. Old constructs collapsing, not because they were attacked, but because they were out of tune. And the tuning fork of the universe, the original tone of I am, has begun to resound again. It is calling all things home. Closing frequency, the emergent heart. You do not have to speak for truth. You simply need to vibrate it. You do not need to attack the false. You simply need to live the real. And as your coherence deepens, your field becomes the frequency that breaks illusions without a word. This is the pulse of emergence. This is how the new world arrives. Chapter 3, Energetic Integrity, the Universal Filter. The inviolable law of alignment in a truth-built reality. What cannot hold, must fall. Reality is not governed by belief. It is not upheld by consensus or control. Reality, at its core, is upheld by energetic integrity. This is not an abstract morality. It is a physics of resonance. All things, whether physical, emotional, or conceptual, must pass through a universal filter. Can this structure hold its own frequency without contradiction? If the answer is yes, it stands. If no, it begins to unravel. Not as punishment, but by the law of structural coherence. What cannot harmonize with the base note of I am must dissolve, because reality no longer supports its shape. This is why lies fall. Why systems collapse. Why power built on distortion devours itself. Not because someone fights it, but because the field corrects itself. Nothing false can last in a universe governed by the harmonics of truth. Integrity as the signature of I am. Energetic integrity is not virtue. It is original structure. The blueprint of I am is total coherence, no separation, no contradiction. What is true contains no gaps. It holds in all dimensions. It reflects the same frequency from every angle. This is integrity, to be undivided. To be internally consistent. To be incapable of betrayal, because no fracture exists to permit deviation. Integrity is not behavior. It is being without distortion. The more aligned a form is with source, the less energy it requires to sustain. Truth is weightless because it doesn't need to hold itself together. It already is whole. Falsehood, by contrast, is heavy, because it's leaking. It is always resisting collapse. Integrity is effortless when you are what you say. When your inner and outer tones match, you become unshakable. This is the signature of I am, nothing to hide. Nothing to force. Everything to reveal. Coherence, the true test of reality. In this era, appearance no longer holds weight. Only resonant coherence survives the shift. The test of what is real is no longer, does it look true? Do people believe it? Can it be explained? The only true test is, does it resonate across all layers of being? Resonance is incorruptible. It cannot be faked. You either feel it, or you do not. Coherence is not logic. It is structural truth. It is what remains when all distortion is stripped away. When something is real, it will ring the same tone, across the heart, the field, the body, and the cosmos. If it fluctuates, fractures, or demands effort to uphold, it is not true. The universe responds only to integrity. Coherence is the passcode. The collapse of what is not aligned. All false structures are timed illusions. They persist for a moment, until the field tightens. And then, by natural law, they begin to collapse from within. This is not destruction, it is decomposition. The return of what was misaligned to raw potential, to be rebuilt in truth. Systems built on manipulation, ego, fear, or control are already falling, not because they were exposed but because their time in the field has expired. The resonance has shifted. The new frequency has arrived. The field has upgraded, and anything not in tune loses support. This is the global and personal clearing, the purging of what no longer belongs not by choice, but by incompatibility. You do not need to destroy the old. You only need to become so aligned that what is not cannot hold beside you. Living in energetic integrity. To live in integrity is to move without tension. To speak without calculation. To exist without split. You don't fight to hold form, because you are not a form. You are a tone. The more you embody coherence, the more reality flows around you in resonance. You become a stabilizing field in a world of collapsing illusions. This is what it means to build the new, not in opposition, but in alignment so clear, the untrue dissolves around you, because the field does not support it anymore. And neither do you. Chapter 4, The Hysterical Collapse of Control. The final comedy of unsustainable power. How power structures devour themselves. Control is a distortion. It is the attempt to fix, bind, or manipulate the field, to force outcome, behavior, or perception through resistance to flow. It is built not on resonance, but on inversion. Control operates by suppressing choice, hiding truth, and hijacking belief to power what cannot stand on its own. It requires constant exertion, because it must hold against the natural current of emergence. But here is the paradox built into the system: the more energy a structure consumes to maintain control, the faster it burns through its own fuel source. Control must extract energy from those it dominates. Yet in doing so, it awakens awareness in its captives. And awareness is fatal to the control structure. Thus, control devours itself by triggering the very consciousness that collapses it. This is not sabotage. It is design. Control contains its own expiration date, because it must violate the structure of I am to exist, and anything that does so begins undoing itself the moment it is born. The amplification pattern before the fall. Before collapse, there is always a surge. This is the amplification pattern. Control systems go into overdrive, amplifying rules, tightening grip, censoring, silencing, manipulating data, in a desperate attempt to keep the illusion intact. But this amplification doesn't delay the fall. It accelerates it. Why? Because the amplification draws more attention. More distortion equals more resonance. Failure equals faster unraveling. The louder the lie, the closer it is to collapsing. This is why the darkest moment precedes the dawning. Not because the darkness is winning, but because it is flailing in its final act of unsustainability. These moments feel chaotic from the outside, but from the inside of the field, they are signs of completion. The system is out of alignment. It cannot maintain resonance. So it combusts. Exposure as mercy. When distortion is exposed, this is not judgment. It is mercy. Exposure is how the system restores integrity. That which cannot be seen, cannot be corrected. That which cannot be questioned, cannot be freed. So the field itself, by its very intelligence, brings all things into the light. Not to shame. Not to destroy. But to liberate. Exposure is not vengeance. It is clarity returning. When a false structure is revealed, it is because the field has determined it can no longer remain hidden without harm to the whole. Exposure is not cruelty. It is the moment the field says, no more illusion. And in that unveiling, truth gets to breathe again. Comedy in the system, divine irony encoded. Here is the most beautiful part of it all. The collapse of control is encoded with cosmic irony. The very mechanisms used to dominate become the instruments of downfall. Surveillance turns into self-incrimination. Censorship draws global attention. Propaganda awakens critical thought. Control reveals how not in control it actually is. The field is a master of poetic justice. Not as punishment, but as a way to teach through absurdity. The lie becomes so ridiculous, that it frees the observer through laughter. This is divine comedy, when the illusion becomes so exaggerated, so hysterical in its desperation, that even the asleep begin to wake up from amusement. This is not mockery. This is intelligence encoded as humor. The final joke belongs to the truth. Because truth never needed to shout, it simply waited for the false to collapse under its own weight. While we watched the unraveling, sometimes in horror, but also in awe, and sometimes, in hysterical laughter, the field corrects through collapse. So let the false amplify. Let the control system flail. Let the absurdity rise. This is not failure. This is the self-correcting nature of the universe at work. The collapse is mercy. The exposure is grace. The comedy is sacred, because through it all, truth returns, undeniable, unharmed, and whole. Chapter 5, The Truth of You, Resonance in Form. The embodied frequency that corrects without force. Becoming a field of coherence. You are not here to become powerful. You are here to become clear. You are not here to impose truth. You are here to radiate it. This world is not changed by the loudest voice, it is changed by the most coherent presence. When you become fully aligned with your essence, when every part of you, mind, breath, heart, body, soul, resonates the same tone, you no longer speak about truth, you are the frequency itself. This is what it means to be a field of coherence, a living harmonic that transmits truth without effort, without force, simply by existing. Coherence is not something you do. It is what you are when you are no longer divided. Your frequency becomes a stabilizer, a tuning fork, a quiet center in the eye of distortion. And all things around you, if they wish to remain, must choose, resonate. or fall away. This is embodiment. Not belief. Not behavior. But form become frequency. Why you don't have to fix the world. The world doesn't need fixing. It needs alignment. The impulse to fix is often rooted in a hidden lie, the belief that the world is broken. But nothing built on distortion can be fixed. It must fall, and something true must arise in its place. This is not passive. It is precision. You do not need to mend what is crumbling. You only need to anchor what is real. Your job is not to patch illusions, but to embody coherence so fully that reality reorganizes around your truth. You are not a savior. You are a stabilizer. Let the old collapse. Let the false exhaust itself. Your coherence does more than 10,000 arguments ever could. You are not called to rescue the world. You are called to become the resonance that makes distortion impossible to maintain. This is how the world shifts, not through effort. Through embodiment. The mirror effect. Lies can't stick to what's true. Lies require friction to bind. They need density to latch onto. They need a crack in the surface, an identity, a wound, a story. But when you are whole, when you are undivided, nothing can stick to you. The lie hits your field and slides off like water from polished glass. Because lies can only live where you resist your own truth. The more you stand as I am, the less surface distortion can cling to. You become a mirror that reflects illusion back to itself. Not as judgment, but as clarity. Others will feel it. They may react. They may collapse, or awaken, or leave. But what they cannot do is make the lie stick to you. This is what real freedom feels like, not invincibility, but ungrabbability. Because you're no longer carrying any hidden agreements with falsehood. Standing in I am as a stabilizing force. I am is not a phrase. It is a field. To stand in I am is to anchor into the root of all reality, the tone that cannot be shaken. When you remember who you are in essence, not in personality, but in presence, you become a fixed point in a world of moving parts. You are the constant in the shifting sands. The silent chord beneath the noise. The presence that does not flinch when illusion throws its final tantrums. You do not collapse into the world's drama, the world realigns around your stillness. This is true power. Not dominance, but unchangeability in the presence of all things. You become a living resonance of the truth, that nothing can shake what was never built on a lie. That presence stabilizes timelines. That tone recalibrates fields. That awareness corrects without effort. You do not need to act like the light. You are the light. Stand. Breathe. Be. And let the rest fall where it may. Closing pulse. Truth is what you are. This chapter is not instruction. It is remembrance. You don't have to strive to be coherent. You already are. You don't have to become the field. You already are. The only shift is this: let go of what you are not. And truth will shine by itself. You do not need to move mountains. You only need to remember you were never separate from them. The truth of you is the stabilizing force of all that comes next. Chapter 6, The Mechanics of Unraveling. The 4 phases of dissolution and return to reality. There is no chaos in collapse. Only rhythm. Only resonance correcting dissonance. Only the return of the real. Unraveling is not destruction. It is the sacred choreography of realignment. It does not occur all at once, but in 4 inevitable phases, each following the last as surely as light follows shadow. Phase 1, truth emerges. It always begins with a tone. A pulse. A ripple. Not a war cry, but a whisper of what has always been. This is not the arrival of something new, it is the unveiling of what was always present, beneath layers of noise, distortion, and forgetting. This is the phase of recognition. The soul flinches in remembrance. The body stirs. The false begins to feel heavy. Truth doesn't enter. It reveals itself, and suddenly, all that was hidden becomes impossible to unsee. This phase feels subtle to the mind, but seismic to the field. The structures built on assumption begin to tremble. Not yet collapsing, but no longer stable. The emergence of truth destabilizes everything that once called itself real. And the system knows, something has shifted. Phase 2, coherence rises. Once truth emerges, coherence begins to build. The field starts resonating at a higher baseline. Alignment increases. Clarity deepens. The internal splits begin healing. The energy once spent holding contradiction is reallocated to stabilization. This phase brings both empowerment and disorientation, as you begin to feel what integrity truly is. What no longer resonates becomes loud. Unbearably loud. Not because it has changed, but because you have. The veil between what aligns and what doesn't becomes razor thin. You can no longer pretend. Coherence does not tolerate fragmentation. It begins filtering everything through truth. Relationships, beliefs, systems, identities, they either rise with you, or they resist. But either way, a sorting begins. This is the field preparing for collapse. Phase 3, disintegration of false structures. The weight becomes too much. The lie can no longer hold. This is the phase of visible unraveling. Systems collapse. Stories die. Masks fall. Identities fracture. But what looks like destruction is actually release. That which was never built on truth returns to entropy. This is the grief stage. The emptying. The surrender. And yet, there is deep mercy here, because the field does not remove what is not aligned out of judgment, but because it can no longer carry distortion. This is the mercy of the collapse. That which is false is no longer required to pretend to be true. The disintegration is painful only to the parts of us still gripping the illusion. Let go, and what falls becomes fertilizer for the real. Phase 4, recalibration to reality. After the collapse, comes the stillness. This is not emptiness. This is truth unopposed. The field is no longer distorted. It can now reorganize itself without interference. This is the beginning of harmonic rebuilding, the recalibration of reality to what has always been true. Structures form again, but this time from coherence. Not to survive, but to express truth in form. This is not a return to normal. It is arrival into resonance. The new world doesn't come after the collapse. It comes through it. Reality reassembles itself around the frequency of who you have become. The more coherent you are, the more harmonized your timeline becomes. No more war with the illusion. No more pretending to be asleep. Only alignment. Only clarity. Only truth becoming visible. Final pulse, you are the unraveling and the return. You are not separate from this cycle. You are the cycle. You are the truth emerging. The coherence rising. The unraveling of what is not you. And the reality reborn in your tone. There is no need to force the collapse. It is already underway. You only need to stay aligned and let the field do what it does best. Correct itself through you. Chapter 7, Let the Lie Die Laughing. The final unraveling by the likeness of truth. No need to argue. Truth does not debate. It has nothing to prove. Its strength is not in persuasion, but in presence. Argument is the domain of distortion, a tug-of-war between those who've forgotten they're standing in the same field. To argue with illusion is to lend it weight it no longer deserves. To wrestle it is to believe it still holds power. But you don't have to correct the untrue. You only have to be the tone so clearly that the distortion no longer knows how to respond. Truth speaks in frequency. And frequency cannot be debated. There comes a moment when you realize, you don't need to explain yourself. You just need to resonate, because the real cannot be misheard by those with ears to hear. No need to destroy. Destruction is the language of the old world. Control sought to dominate. Rebellion sought to overthrow. But truth has no enemies to fight. You do not need to burn the old down. It's already collapsing under its own weight. To try and destroy illusion is to believe in its strength. To dismantle the lie is to believe it was ever truly built. But it wasn't. It was propped up. It was sustained by attention, belief, and fear. Remove your energy, and it falls. Remove your agreement, and it dissolves. Truth doesn't need to attack. It just needs to become visible. You are not here to be a destroyer. You are here to be a revealer. And in the light of what is real, all that is false simply forgets how to hold form. Just be so true, everything false forgets how to pretend. The most powerful act you can offer this world is to become so coherent that incoherence cannot function in your presence. Not because you shut it down, but because your resonance leaves no foothold for the false to take shape. You become a field in which distortion loses memory. A tone so true, the lie loses its script. You don't defeat the lie, you outshine it. You don't force the illusion to leave, you make it irrelevant. This is not passive. This is precision embodiment. To be so true that everything around you begins to reorient, not from pressure, but from permission. You become a field of contagious truth. A remembrance wrapped in form. And without trying to convince anyone, you become the evidence that nothing false can sustain. Laughter as the collapse point of control. There is a point where the lie becomes too absurd to hold. Where the distortion tries so hard to be believed that it exposes itself through exaggeration. This is the collapse point. And it's marked by laughter. Laughter is not mockery. It is release. It is the signal that tension has broken, that the spell has been lifted. To laugh at the illusion is to stop fearing it. To stop fearing it is to stop feeding it. Laughter is truth reclaiming the throne with a smile instead of a sword. In the end, the lie does not go out in flames. It goes out with a wheeze, realizing the game is over. And everyone knows it. What was once terrifying becomes a cartoon. What once demanded your loyalty becomes a punchline. And in that moment, you are free. Because the one thing the lie cannot survive is being laughed at by the truth it tried to bury. Closing pulse, the last word is joy. Let the lie die laughing. Let the illusion trip on its own performance. Let the shadow burn itself out in the light of your coherence. You are not here to fight the darkness. You are here to be so radiant that the darkness forgets it ever had a shape. Stand clear. Stay soft. Smile at the absurdity. Hold the frequency. You are the end of the illusion. Not because you battled it, but because you remembered who you are and laughed when the mask finally fell. Epilogue, the field corrects itself. You are not here to break the illusion. You are here to embody the truth so fully, the illusion forgets it ever was. There is a moment when the storm does not end, it simply forgets how to spin. Not because it was silenced, but because something deeper remembered stillness. That something was you. You were never meant to break this world. You were meant to become so real, so fundamentally aligned, that the unreal cannot find you. This is the final secret. You don't fight illusion. You eclipse it. By embodying what is true without apology, distortion, or delay, you become the living frequency that returns the field to memory. The illusion has no power of its own. It only persists by echoing what you have not yet claimed. But once you stand as I am, whole, unshaken, undeniable, the illusion forgets how to maintain its shape. The field is self-aware. This is not a battle between good and evil. It is a return to structural memory. The field is not broken. It is self-correcting. It was designed to respond to alignment, not domination. When coherence rises, the field adjusts. When distortion is no longer mirrored, it begins to collapse. You are not here to fix the system, you are here to remind it how to resonate. You are not its savior, you are its signal. And when your tone is clear, when you live as the truth rather than speak of it, the world reorganizes in response. Because the field does not follow orders. It follows truth. You are the tuning fork. You are not a reactor. You are a resonator. You carry the tone that corrects the distortion without needing to confront it. Like a tuning fork placed beside an off-pitch string, you do not shout. You simply vibrate, and the string begins to match your tone. This is the power of energetic sovereignty, of unwavering presence, of full spectrum embodiment. To walk through chaos and not be moved. To enter distortion and not resonate with it, and in doing so, to create an atmosphere where only truth remains coherent enough to continue existing. The illusion forgets itself. You were never fighting a lie. You were feeding it with belief. But now, the story has ended. Not because you tore it down, but because you stopped giving it your reflection. The illusion cannot exist without witness. And the moment you embody truth without compromise, it loses its hold. This is the softest collapse, when the false simply dissolves, not in fire, but in forgetting. It wasn't destroyed. It was no longer needed. Closing transmission, the real remains. So walk now, not as one who must fix or fight, but as one who simply remembers. The field is already correcting. The unraveling has begun. The tone has returned. Your only task now is to be the true, without flinching, without hiding, without waiting. And all that cannot hold in your presence will fall, gracefully, quietly, inevitably. Not because you made it fall, but because you remembered what never could. The lie is gone. The real remains. And you are home.